come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. The Wookiee says, let's dive right in. Oh, boy. I just can't get enough of the Wook. You know, we have a new Wookiee introduction. It was done by our mutual pal, John Voight. It was... It's done for the basics. I think we're on our fifth or sixth basic program. We're going to do one midday today between this program and our family hour.
Oh, wow.
We'll get to see it debuted then. Obviously, you've seen it because you've worked on it. He has really got talent.
He is very good, yes.
Yes.
And an attention to detail that I don't have when it comes to AI. I mean, to just keep going and going and going. Yeah.
There are so many, the things on the blackboard, the things that are carved into the rock, the maps, the hats, the tools of the archaeological discovery, the calculation on time in that first whiteboard. He's really got it. It is spectacular. It's going to be worth just going into the basics for Wookiee's introduction, which is actually
right.
funnier than the one we just played. And on as a teaser for that show, we're going to start a series on the basics regarding Shavua, which is the next harvest, and it's the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles. So we're going to do it. I think I have 60 some odd pages of material that I have prepared in advance for that series. I probably have another 20 pages to assemble, so it'll be about 80 pages, and the maximum we can do really in an hour's time is about 10 to 12 pages. So it's going to be a long series on Shavua. And there'll be some really interesting things that are part of it. Like I think we've had a number of our family members have wondered, what is the reference to the 8 people? And how do they play into eternity? I guess with our AI assistant on the website now, a lot of questions have been posed regarding who those 8 people might be. Fortunately, that section does end by saying that it is Yahweh's choice. But the thing that's actually the most interesting about it is the preamble to it, as to what God says about our announcement regarding Teruah. And it's blow you away kind of prophecy.
Wow. Good.
Spectacular. While we're speaking of the website, Kevin, you and I were chatting about it before the program began, also with Kevin and Rich over here. We have an AI feature that is an AI assistant. It's a variation of Claude, but open market Claude. So it's not doesn't seem to be teachable at this point. But we are trying to get it to focus on what it's supposed to do. And with exception, I think, of only 2 or 3 people, the questions have been really quite good. And the answers have been quite good. We've had 2 people, both from the Mother Goddess cult, that have decided that they don't like their home very much, and they
we got a nicer place. They want to complain.
Yeah, they got a nicer place. And they want to spend time here, but it's like a lot of vagrants when they come and spend time here, all they want to do is tear it down. So
yes,
it is. It's just amazing that you find a group of people that want to be off on their own. You say, initially you say, fine. Thank you for your contribution up this point. Have a nice life. We'll goodbye. And then they can't handle that. And they spend, it looks like, every waking hour figuring out what they can do to try to demean me, even though they were only together because of me, and everything they knew was from me. And they were spending all their time trying to counterfeit me. And they're still at it after all this time. Every time they post something that is absurd, that's an argument, there is a immediate answer from Yahweh as to how stupid that was and why they shouldn't do it. And with every lesson, they just dig in and become more belligerent. It's a really sad situation. And to see them trying to torment an AI engine so that they can get it to disparage me. God, how childish are these people?
And a complete waste of time.
My goodness.
It's not persistent, They're not. It's not persistent. They're not teaching it anything. Yeah.
No. So let's just be clear. It is an AI assistant. AI has its limitations, but the advantage of AI is it can assimilate research. And having written over 25,000 pages of material, and now we have the transcripts from many of our shows, and it's about 1,000 hours of these vlogs. That's a lot of material, and somebody may have a question. They want some of that pulled together so they can think about it. The AI is really good for that. What we found is that with the exception of a couple of just nincompoops, cancerous malignant cells, most of the questions have been quite good, and the AI has done a very good job of answering them. And I just want to say a couple of things. One is that, if your purpose is that you are really miserable in your life and I'm living rent-free in your head, and because you can't figure out anything on your own, don't come here. Go someplace else. You went away. You went away for a reason. Stay away, okay? Please. And second is, this is not a confessional. Don't tell the AI your life story. It isn't. That's not what it's designed for. It is designed for you to ask a question that pertains to the books that I've written and the shows that I have done, the translations that I've made, the conclusions that I've drawn, and to ask questions regarding those things. That is its parameters. It isn't a psychologist. It's not going to give you advice on how to live your life. That is not. It
doesn't do stock picks. It does not.
And you're not writing me. I am not. I am not composing any of these things. So you're not communicating directly with me. You shouldn't tell your life story. You should ask a question and deal with the answer to the question. And also keep in mind that anything you write on the internet stays on the internet, and it never goes away. And of course, for training purposes and for quality purposes, we have to have a log. We have to know what is being asked and most certainly what is being said. And sometimes we're reading this stuff and saying, "Oh my God, people, please."
Yes, we have to on the back end.
People claiming to be covenant, asking religious questions.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of that. So many people have heard this term covenant and they think that it applies to them. And I'm here to tell you that the number of people who are actually qualified to call themselves covenant and who are going to receive the benefits of the covenant is a tiny, tiny fraction of those who think they are. So if you're asking religious questions, you are not covenant. If you expect that the AI assistant is going to be your teacher, as opposed to reading the books and doing the work that's necessary to learn, you're not covenant. Don't worry about it. Sorry, but that's the reality of this, and it got to think it through. The next thing on a really positive note, and by the way, the AI, the Ask Yada's assistant on a positive note is exceedingly positive. It is really a nice tool. It's being abused by very few people and being used well and performing well by the vast majority. The other thing is that
it's great for searches. It's great for searches. I can remember you saying something in a video, and I can go ask. I said, "Hey, when did Yada say something about Bakar? In this context?" And bam, it gives me I've been absolutely amazed at the more and more that we're able to get the corrected transcripts in and everything of how actually dialed in it is on the source material to be able to get you the answer that's correct. Hey, where did he say this in this video? What was he when he was talking about Bakar or the White Lioness or whatever? It brings you to those passages and those places, and so it's really, really excellent for research. Yes.
Yeah, that was our hope. Is that I think it's Mary that's providing the transcripts now, and Mary Page that is doing the transcripts, and everything I hear, she's doing a great job on these transcripts, and there is quite the file of them. I don't think anywhere close to 1,000 programs, which is basically what we've done, but certainly hundreds of programs where she has the transcripts from them. And that is where we're conveying most of what we are learning over this last year. And so the fact that it can search those shows in addition to the books is just a huge advantage, because we have a search capability already. If you click books,
Sure.
the top of the book page is search. And it's a very effective search engine, much better than anything we've been exposed to previously. But it doesn't search the shows. If you do the Ask feature, it also searches these programs as well. So that part's great. Now, the thing that we were missing, because X and Facebook have become way too gutterish to spend time. It's every time you're on Facebook or X, you feel like you need to go take a shower. It's repulsive what they have become. They are very, very trashy, anti-Semitic, racist, political, just junk, keyboard jihadi sites, and 90% of what shows up in my feed is absolute trash. And they've been destroyed by AI, actually, because people can create the illusion of a public figure or of a newsreel, and every bit of it's fake. And so it's becoming more and more difficult to distinguish between real and fake as it's being presented, and the conclusions are always wrong. And so it is such a horrible environment and so poorly managed by both platforms. I mean, Leia's using Grok to do some of the AI imagery, and she says almost every time I give it a picture, it wants to strip its clothes off. Grok is just a sexual pervert. And on Facebook, all of the strikes that I have on me on Facebook are because of something they provided in the feed, and my only contribution is say this is not true. And yes, I'm the one who's sanctioned for passing on what they passed on to me. It's just not healthy. And so what we wanted to do is to have everything you could enjoy and benefit from on Facebook and X when they were both functional, and they weren't anymore, but with a communication, chat, comment capability. And Joe has now created that. It was live for a moment. He wasn't pleased with its total functionality. He took it back down. It is, I think, live again from the footer. And it is 10 times better than it was yesterday. And yesterday I thought it was quite good. Yeah. So he's still developing that. But over the next couple of 3 days, I would think he'll take it live and we'll begin to debug it. But it has a way for you to be able to sign in, comment on a variety of different topics, and communicate with one another, even direct messenger between people. Yeah. So it is takes what we were trying to achieve on Facebook, where we had a sense of community, and it actually creates one in a non-hostile environment. So look forward to that and it being presented. But otherwise, that website is developing beautifully. Oh my goodness.
In leaps and bounds too. Just the speed at which stuff, very, very complicated things come online has blown me away, because I kind of know a little bit about what goes into the back end of this. And man, I don't, is Joe sleeping? I mean,
no, he is like Leia. They just don't sleep. They go all night. They might take a cat nap during the day, but they go all night, and it has been tremendous. All right, what I wanted to talk about here, Kevin, with you is really to delve into one particular topic, and that is, what is the next step in this horrendous war that Israel and the United States have decided to fight against Iran, and what is going to happen over the next few days, and what are the consequences of the escalation that is evident, that is about to befall us. As by way of introduction, I am not an unbiased person here, nor you. I care deeply about Israel's survival. I will ultimately lay down my life for Israel. I have had thousands of death threats on behalf of Israel. We serve the God of Israel. Israel is important to us. That does not mean that the religion of Judaism is of interest to us. We despise it. God despises it. So we differentiate between what it means to be a Yehud, beloved of Yah, and Judaism, one being very, very good and one being very, very bad. We also distinguish between the government of Israel, where it is, I will say, my conclusion, maybe your conclusion as well, that Netanyahu has become a tremendous liability for Israel, and that he has darn near destroyed the country. He has destroyed its reputation in the world. He has isolated the country and taken Israel to the point where it's the ultimate pariah of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just easily the pariah of the world. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't find an expert anymore that is a genuine expert on the subjects that I find interesting pursuant to Israel and the world, who will say a kind thing about Israel. And almost all of them will overtly trash Israel. And these are experts on their subject. And what Israel has done has put it in a position where there's literally no one who respects the government of Israel.
Right.
And it's played right into the anti-Semites who despise Israel just because it's Jewish. We don't. We love Jews and committed to the survival of Israel, actually to the remnant that will be able to go into the millennial Shabbat. We're the catalyst that makes that possible. So you can't have anyone more devoted to Israel than we are. And I've over the past quarter century, have invested over 100,000 hours in support of Israel, writing these books based upon translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls and writing another 13 books against the religions that are so caustic to Israel. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, Israel has put itself in a terrible spot, and I think we need to view the Iran war in context, not as an isolated instance, and to understand why we spoke against it before we just jump in and say, okay, now you're in a lose-lose scenario. You need to know we're not coming to this lose-lose scenario based upon current events and what people are saying today. This is something that we have developed as an understanding over the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. When Israel was attacked on October 7th of 23, I wrote a 100-page open letter to Israel, telling Israel that you do not know your enemy. Mm-hmm. Your enemy is a religion. It's not a terrorist organization. And if you do not understand the nature of this enemy and how this religion has been your enemy for 14 centuries, and understand the text of this enemy, their scriptures, and what their motivations are, then you have no chance whatsoever of prevailing.
Yeah, it's not radical Islam. It's just Islam. It's
just Islam. And the majority of those who infiltrated Israel on October 7th were not Hamas. They were run-of-amok, run-of-the-mill Muslim boys and tinny rompers. And most of them didn't even have rifles. Some did on the initial wave. But after that, they were just boys, the Muslim boys out to rape, plunder, and kill, because that's what their religion and their God asks of them, and their prophet, their non-prophet, asks of them. And so having written Prophet of Doom, which at the time was the most comprehensive, chronological, contextual, and most well-documented presentation of the Islamic source materials, their scriptures, ever written, I knew a lot about the nature of what I was witnessing on, we were all witnessing on October 7th. And I knew that October 7th was nothing more than a reprisal, another representation, if you will, of what happened at Kabar.
Yeah.
After Muhammad declared that he was the Jewish Messiah, and he moved into Kabar, or to Yathrib, now Medina, which was at the time a farming community, 30,000 Jews, highest concentration of Jews anywhere in the world at the time. And the farming community of Yathrib, date farmers is what they were. And they were reasonably prosperous there. And Muhammad was down and out because he had been mocked out of town based upon the satanic verses and the wild donk mule ride to the non-existent temple. And so he was a laughingstock. And he managed to convince 12 pagan morons from Yathrib that he was the Jewish Messiah, and that if they supported him, that they would be able to rape whoever they wanted to rape, enslave who they wanted to enslave, rob and keep 80% of the plunder that they had conquered, with of course Muhammad getting 20%.
Gotta get your
and that if they lived, then they could roll in the dough and the babes, and if they died, that his pretend God would reward them with multiple virgins in the Islamic paradise. And they said, "Oh, great! What a deal, man! That's perfect.
Right.
What do we need to do?" And they said, "It's the Pledge of Aqaba." And the Pledge of Aqaba is, we pledge to wage war against all mankind. So I knew the nature of this beast, and I knew that Israel didn't. And I knew that Israel had entered a time when the IDF had become a liability rather than their protector. And that became obvious on October 7th. The IDF was counterproductive. And since that time, it has continued to be counterproductive. Because as I foretold back on October 7th of 2023, I said, Israel, I'm going to tell you the 5 things you need to do to survive, of which you're not going to do any of them, but I will tell you they would work. And then I'm going to tell you the things you're going to do, and I'm going to explain to you why they will not work. And I predicted everything they were going to do and told them exactly why they weren't going to work. And I said, you're going to invade Gaza. Dumb move. You cannot defeat a religious foe with bullets and bombs. With bullets and bombs, you will make more of them. This is foolish. And in the process, you're going to end up destroying Gaza, and you're going to turn the world against you. And they did. And now everybody in the world is saying, Jews committed genocide in Gaza. No, they did not commit genocide in Gaza by any sane definition of genocide outside of the UN's new revised definition of genocide, which is a bully in a sandbox is genocidal because he made
Didn't the population increase? The population of Gaza is more today.
Yeah, it increased. It increased.
Those Jews, they are good. If they can genocide and increase a population, how do they do that?
The fact is, if the Jews actually wanted to commit genocide in Gaza, they could have done so from the air, never invaded Gaza, and they could have wiped out the entire population. They could have ended the lives of 2.2 million people in 3 days' time.
And had all these room for settlements.
But you can't perpetrate genocide on a group that does not have any related genes. Genocide is a racial elimination of a race of people.
Genus, yeah.
Pakistanians are not a related race. They are an ethnic slur. There is no such thing as a Palestinian. There never has been. The closest thing was the Philistines, and they were exterminated around 600 BCE by the Neo-Babylonians. They don't exist. It is nothing but an ethnic slur. And so you can't have genocide against a myth. And you can't have genocide if the population grows. But the UN rewrote the statutes on genocide so they can convict anybody they wanted to of genocide. Donald Trump, of course, is genocidal. Anybody who makes one or more people feel uncomfortable is genocidal according to those terms. I have published them many times because I went and read them. I wanted to find out why they were making these claims. And according to their definition, everybody is genocidal. I'm genocidal because I've said things to people that they need to hear, but that are uncomfortable for them to hear.
Right.
Okay.
Discomfort. Yes. That is the margin.
Now you got to rewrite the definition,
right?
So you can justify
absolutely
how you're going to.
So the definition doesn't mean anything anymore, and so you can accuse anybody of it. You can accuse anybody of a war crime today because the way that the war crime statutes are written, everybody's guilty of it. I mean, the kid that shoots 3 spit wads, he's a war criminal. But the fact of the matter is, Israel didn't commit genocide there, but what they did do may have been worse. They bombed Gaza into a heap of rubble. And with every picture of that heap of rubble, it became worse. And then they did the unthinkable, which is they put themselves in a position that they were responsible for feeding and caring for those who wanted to abolish them, to exterminate them. I mean, never in the history of human events has anybody put themselves in a position where they're hated by the world for feeding those who want their annihilation. Mm-hmm. It's just astonishing that this is the way that Israel has put itself into this position, and they've done so because of the dunderhead moves by Netanyahu, the IDF, the Mossad, and the Shin Bet. It's as if no one in Israel can think anymore. Mm-hmm. That was a wrong move. You can't say, well, there's nothing you can't. You had to do something to Hamas. You had to. Hamas is every bit what they were before you went in. So you killed the heads of Hamas, but you killed the heads of Hezbollah too. You killed the heads of the state of Iran too. What happened? They replaced them.
They're still bombing in Lebanon. They're still
a religious enemy by killing their leaders.
Right.
I'm sorry. This is just stupid. And so you made a bad situation worse, and you turned the entire world against you in the process. And you want to pound your chest and say, oh, we're fighting a 7-front war. No, you're not. You're fighting a war against one foe, and you won't even acknowledge who that foe is. Mm-hmm. And with everything you do, all you're doing is angering everybody. And now you put yourself in a terrible position, because by angering the entire world and becoming a pariah, Israel is now isolated to a single genuine, not genuine, it's not a round term, a singular ally. You know, I know that Modi will come in and he'll put his hand around your shoulder. Modi would kiss a snake if he thought it was in India's best interest. Modi is the ultimate tramp of the world when it comes to pretending to be your friend and then turning on you the next moment. He has zero loyalty, none. And you've isolated yourself from China and Russia now, so that you are the enemy of China and Russia. You've turned all of Europe against you. And so all you've got is Donald Trump. And you don't have America because you lost the Democratic Party, of which most Jews in America are Democrats, and you lost the Democratic Party. That's almost universal hatred of Israel. And you've lost almost all young Americans, that even Republican Americans, you've lost them. And your MAGA Twistians are not suitable allies. And Donald Trump is presented all the way through the prophets. He's the great betrayer. He's the one who arranges for Israel to lose its heart and a terror state carved out of its midst. We were told directly by Yahweh's prophets exactly who he is, and he is Donald Trump at this time doing these various things. And he is Rahab. He is going to betray you. He is absolutely going to throw you under the bus. He's going to sacrifice. He would sacrifice you for a good hair day. Doesn't take much, and there's no recovering once you are been trashed by Trump, and he's vicious. And you put yourself in a vassal situation to the man who will turn out to be worse than Adolf Hitler, worse than Stalin, worse than Mao Zedong, worse than Kubla or Genghis Khan, worse than Tamerlane. We're looking at the man who will be Caligula. This is the worst man who ever lived. He is demon possessed, and you have put yourself at his mercy. And that's a really bad spot to be in. And you furthered that with the first Iran war. We ought to say and be very clear about this. All of those nincompoops out there that are pretending to be smart and saying that Iran has no intention of developing a nuclear weapon, you have to be absolutely out of your mind to make such a statement. The maximum fissile purity of civilian grade uranium enrichment is between 3 and 5%. You run a nuclear power plant between 3 and 5%, depending on the nature of that plant. There's just tiny things you would do in medical research with, a gram of enriched uranium to 20%. But Iran's not doing that kind of research, and it would be a gram. And you would never put your country at risk for it.
Right.
To put the country at risk for decades with sanctions that are biting, isolating it from the world, to enrich uranium, over 400 kilograms of uranium to 60% or more fissile purity, has a singular purpose. There are no other purposes other than to make nuclear bombs. And to say otherwise is just to be dishonest, intellectually dishonest. And I hear so many experts make this claim. It isn't true. There's only one reason to enrich uranium to 60% fissile purity. And from, by the way, with a cascade the size of the studio that I'm in right now, you could take 60% enriched uranium, generating a runoff of a Hyundai or a Prius, and you could enrich it to 87% fissile purity, which is high enough for a nuclear bomb, in a week's time. There's nothing to it. Once you get it to 60%, there's literally nothing to it to get it to 87% fissile purity. It's just harder to hold in that condition. It's more, more deadly. Prefer to keep it in the 60% because that's where all the work is. It's easy from that point on. And then the next hard part is to have missiles that are capable of being properly guided so they don't explode over you, that can reliably deliver such bomb so that it doesn't blow up on you. And boy, the Iranians are in the top 4 or 5 countries in the world on that.
Right.
And the rest of it, you can go online and read how to create the centrifugal compression force to once you have uranium 235 to the proper fissile purity. And it's not that big a deal. It's easy. And these Persians are bright. So that's the only reason they developed it. Now, they never used one, did they?
No.
So when Israel goes and attacks them, as they did a little over about a year ago now, not quite a year ago now, when they did that, did Israel increase or decrease the likelihood that Iran will develop a nuclear bomb?
Absolutely increased it. You gave us a reason. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. What you told us is that because we don't have a bomb yet, you can attack us. But if we had a bomb, you wouldn't be able to attack us. That's what you told us.
Nobody's going and taking care of Kim Un. Nobody cares about Kim Un.
That is
leave him on his island.
Bad hair boy can live on his little peninsula all untouched, and he can do anything he wants to do because no one's going after him. This is why what Trump and Israel created in that first Iran war, the 12-day war. When Trump said, well, I obliterated it. And we kept on saying this. No, you didn't. You didn't even remove it by so much as a week's amount of time, or 1 gram of uranium did you destroy. You didn't get any of it. And not only that, all you did is accelerate their desire to have a bomb. And now it's over. The previous Ayatollah, but they went and killed him. He thought it was sacrilegious to have a nuclear bomb. And so he precluded the final development of the nuclear bomb. And now they went and killed him. And now the rest of them are saying, oh, that was really stupid of him. We'll go ahead and finish our bomb.
Yeah.
I don't know how Israel can be this foolish, but they are. And it goes on and on again. Now, the other lesson we learned, at least everybody outside of Israel and the United States learned, in the 12-day war, is that in the war between interceptor and missile, the interceptor always loses, even if the interceptor wins, because the disparity in costs and the lead time in making them, and how you can make missiles and drones much faster and a much greater quantity than you can interceptors. So any prolonged war the country that has the defensive interceptor system is going to lose. And I understand it now that the Iron Dome and David's Sling and the Arrow system, that collectively that multi-layered system, even throw some THAADs in there, that they're having north of 80% success, so long as we're not dealing with cluster munitions, which they have no success unless they get them before they enter Israeli airspace. So this is not a war that Israel could win as missile versus interceptor. And then we went on to say that you have to look at relative size when you're doing these kinds of things. I know more about Islam than any Muslim. I mean, now having taken Prophet of Doom, rewritten it, and expanded it from 1 volume to 5 volumes that are all 825 pages long, and have translated every verse in the Quran and put it into context of Muhammad's life and provided every meaningful hadith regarding Muhammad and the development of the Quran. I know Islam better than anybody. And I just tell you that I'm exceedingly opposed to the Islamic regime in Iran. But that said, I know that when a country does things that are suicidal, that's not helpful. And when
no
you
one
look
has,
at this, go ahead.
No one has an exit strategy here, Israel or the United States, because they didn't need one. Netanyahu doesn't want to go to jail, and Trump doesn't want people to talk about Epstein files. So, I mean,
and therefore you have a war that's going to destroy both countries.
Absolutely.
Literally going to destroy both countries. That is where we're going to end up here, is a war that destroys both countries because of personal issues with heads of state. Now, the size issue matters. Size does matter, turns out, Kevin. And the reason size matters is that Iran is 20 times the size of Israel, but it's about the size of Western Europe. You could not destroy Iran with 10,000 bombing runs. I mean, now we're bringing in the B-52s to carpet bomb Iran.
Yeah.
You can kill a lot of people. You can scare a lot of camels. You can scare up a lot of dust. You cannot destroy a nation the size of Western Europe with a bombing campaign.
No.
It can't be done. And Israel can't do it with their little air force comprised of fighter jets.
No.
It's impossible to do. And yet, when you have a tiny little country the size of, 5 postage stamps, where 70% of your population lives within, 10% of your land?
Oh,
between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem? How easy it is for Iran to obliterate Israel. And it's impossible for Israel to go the other way. Iran could attack Israel with 2 million troops. And I think will, based upon my reading of the prophets.
And they will gain some help on the way across Jordan. They will gain some help on the way.
Oh, they're going to go across Iraq, which they already control. And then across Syria and Jordan, which they'll find not only will they find a favorable environment there, they'll pick up hundreds of thousands of jihadists along the way. They'll go from 2 million to 3 million going there. Now, going the other way, Israel can't do it.
Right.
There is a 0% possibility that Israel could take mechanized units and go through Jordan, Syria, or Iraq, and then invade Iran. Cannot be done. Impossible for them to get there, impossible for them to be supplied, impossible for them to be victorious. And there's 100 reasons that I could get for that, but it's just impossible. So Israel cannot prevail with an invasion, which means they can never control the country. They can't occupy the country. And you're never going to get the Shiite Muslims in Iran to capitulate and say, oh, yeah, you beat us. We'll capitulate. We'll give you all of our uranium. Even though you have bombs, we'll give up our missile program and we'll be completely defenseless. And we will no longer have our little helper cells with the Houthis and the Iraqi militias and the Hezbollah and the like. We'll give up Islam while we're at it, and we'll convert to Judaism. No problem. 0% chance that's going to happen. And so Israel is dealing with a country with 93 million people versus what, 7.5 million Jews in Israel. That just the population difference alone, plus the geography difference, is such that Israel had a 0% chance of prevailing in an ongoing war. And then you have to add the utter stupidity, this is with a capital S, of regime change. And not understanding the nature of regime change, or not appreciating the fact that the United States is the foremost expert on regime change. They've done it now 100 times since the end of the last World War.
Right.
You know what America's success rate is with 100 regime change operations?
Zero.
Not
literally
one. Not one that it could be called a success. And there's some that are catastrophic failures, like Libya,
Syria,
look at Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine. I mean, catastrophic failures with deaths of millions of people and completely destroyed states. And that's the legacy of regime change when coordinated by the CIA and or CIA, MI6, and Mossad. So it was not going to happen. There was a 0% chance of a favorable outcome. 0. And yet, Barnea, the head of the Mossad, who should have gone off and shot himself, I'm sorry, but that's what he should have done after 10/7, and he had the actual plan for Al-Aqsa flood months in advance, had all sorts of videos of them training to carry out Al-Aqsa flood, had all sorts of forewarning, and then didn't do anything to protect Israel. That's a man who should have done far more than resign. At that point, your life isn't worth living. You caused the death of thousands of Jews and destroyed the Jewish position in the world because of your belligerence. You
take an oath to protect. Yeah.
And yet he went and told Netanyahu, oh, yeah, you get regime change, no problem. Yeah, we'll do a decapitation strike. We'll get regime change. Not only isn't that possible, regime change has to be homegrown. It has to be generic. And it has happened in countries, never prompted by the US or the CIA or the Mossad, but it has happened. It happened in Nazi Germany. Before there was a CIA, because the CIA was founded by Nazis after the war, and it wasn't perpetrated by the Mossad because they didn't exist at the time either. Israel didn't exist. But the Nazis, Socialist Democratic Workers' Party, with their brown shirts, which would be, if you know what a brown shirt is, it's like ICE today. It's a private army for a dictator. They were so ruthless that 3 to 5% of Germans were able to cause regime change. But that because they were armed and they were violent and they were homegrown. They had something that they were going toward, not something they were going just away from, and they were going toward National Socialism and Adolf Hitler. It also worked prior to that time, 15s-ish, that period in Russia, where the Bolsheviks under Lenin with Marxism were also ruthless, immoral, and vicious, and they were a homegrown group of about the same percentage, 3 to 5% of Russians, and that's enough if the revolution is sufficiently vicious and they have something that they're going to, not just from. In Iran, I watched those protests. It was never even a tiny fraction of 1%, but never anywhere close to 1% of Iranians were protesting. It wasn't homegrown. It wasn't generic. Wasn't grassroots. It was being sponsored by the Mossad and CIA, just like what happened in Ukraine. And they were lightly armed, mostly by the Mossad and the CIA, and not heavily armed. And they were the less ruthless party because the Revolutionary Guard Corps were far more ruthless. And so you just look at it intelligently and you say, this has a 0% chance of prevailing. This is not going to be regime change because in addition to all of that, this minority had something they did not like, but they had nothing to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a from, it has to be a to. And now, if I can figure that out, why can't they?
Right. They have different motivations, completely different motivations. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is to protect Israel. Theirs
Right.
is to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm. And enrich themselves. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Now, when Netanyahu figured out how to play Trump, now, I don't think Trump made any decision. Trump doesn't make any decision for anybody else. He only makes decisions for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't decide based upon an orderly assessment of evidence and come up with a reasonable or moral conclusion. He just does what he thinks is going to be fun for today. He's chaos. He's a confabulator. He's literally the corporeal manifestation of Satan. But when Israel goes off and has all these meetings with Trump, and then sells Trump on the idea of a decapitation strike, and Trump then chimes in and say, "Yeah, let's go do that. That'd be fun."
Mm-hmm.
Israel puts itself in a position where, when it all falls apart, which it has already, Americans aren't going to blame. Well, they will blame Trump to some extent, but not the MAGA. They're going to have a scapegoat, and you hear them with the shrill voices already, and they're always and already vehemently exonerating Trump and blaming Israel, the AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, and Netanyahu.
Oh, well, it's default. It's blame the Jews. It is choice number one always.
And if you put yourself in a position where you make that easy, that's a bad day's decision. And when Israel was already isolated from the world because of what they did in Gaza, even though it was, they were obviously badly harassed by the Muslims on 10/7, but the Muslims on 10/7 harassed them and were vicious because they were trying to taunt them into destroying Gaza. That's what the Muslims wanted them to do. That's why they were so vicious, was to taunt the Jews into destroying Gaza, because they knew if they destroyed Gaza, they could accuse Israel of genocide and isolate Israel. And once they isolated Israel, there would be a fakistanian state. And once there was a fakistanian state, Israel's completely indefensible.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that would happen. And it did. Israel got played. And then with the 12-day war, Israel becomes the ultimate pariah nation and had to beg for peace because they're running out of interceptors and they were getting badly hit. And there was nothing they could do to Iran, and they were not having any effect on Iran's nuclear program. And they knew.
We talked about in the last show with the decapitation strike, they've got no one to negotiate with now. How do we turn it off? You talked about the dead hand switch. You talked about that.
It was a 3-point loss for Israel, the decapitation strike. The first is that it turned Khomeini and the regime into martyrs.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than being people that say, the tyrant is dead, let's go take over the country. No, they rallied around their guy because he was killed by those dastardly Jews whom Iranians hate. And therefore, you turned him into a hero.
Mm-hmm.
You completely changed the nature of the Iranian government. So you didn't get regime change in the sense of, boy, let's get a pro-Israeli, pro-United States government. What you got instead was a more anti-Israel government. You go and you killed their parents, you killed their leaders, and what you get is a group of younger leaders who are now saying, we have nothing to lose but to go, we'll fight to the death. We'll fight to the death to destroy these bastards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they are now. So they replaced the government, all right, with a vastly worse government.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got the dead hand switch. Khomeini outsmarted them, just like Sinwar did. And I actually think that he set himself up to be a martyr, that he knew what was going to happen. And he put out the dead hand switch in advance of it, which decentralized the entire Iranian defense and military, and gave ongoing orders to each of those separate silos of defense and say, you fight to the death.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they want to do. Death to America, death to Israel. I mean, why? That's all they want to do. So, yeah.
Yes. Now, we're not
Give 'em free
speaking
rein.
on behalf of Iran here.
No.
Don't like Islam. Really, just know it better than anybody, dislike it more than anyone. But when you have a country that you care about doing stupid stuff, you need to expose to them why what you did was so stupid.
This is our attempt at an intervention. We love
This
you.
is our
Please
attempt,
have a
yes, as
seat.
an intervention.
We-
It's just like
please have a
telling
seat. We
Doe
love
when
you.
he did the Bathsheba thing and killed her husband, that was a really stupid thing to do, pal. You need to listen to us now, because what you did was really stupid. And we need to get your head screwed on right, because right now your head is looking backwards.
Yeah.
And so this is an intervention. And sometimes to do an intervention, what you have to do is go through the entire process of how you got here.
Uh-huh.
And so that you know that going forward, the person that's speaking to you is not a Monday morning quarterback. They've been with you this whole time, and they have
Right.
been warning you, you should not be doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't rely on the God of Israel, because you erased his name. We just lost Kevin there. He went away entirely. So we'll see if we can get him back, figure out why he might have disappeared. It says you've entered again. But Israel, you erased his name. You obliterated your relationship with him. You chose to be religious as opposed to engage in the covenant. And you've done everything you can to annoy him and annoy his son, because you don't recognize that Dowd is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is your Savior. He is returning King. You've denied God, his beloved Son, and you have denied yourselves of his name, and you've written over his Torah with your God-forsaken Talmud.
You're
You do
looking
not
for a
have God on your
Hamashiach.
side.
He's in the
Yes.
Torah. He's anointed 3 times. He's right there.
He's
How
right
hard
there.
is it? He's right
Yeah,
there.
how hard is it? Read the 89th Mizmor. It isn't that difficult. And so, Israel, you don't have God on your side. He's not returning until you return to him, and that's not for another 7 years. And it's only then, when you listen to what I'm trying to tell you, what we're trying to tell you now, that you are going to begin to return to him and listen to him. And between now and then, you need to understand God is sitting this one out.
Mhm.
He will ultimately rid Israel of Israel's enemies, but not for another 7 years. And it's going to
It's
get
a-
really bad between now
It's
and
a
then.
mess by the time
It's
we
a
get to
mess.
that point. Yeah.
Yes. And Israel, you don't have enough troops. You know, you're a nation of 7 million, 7.5 million Jews, and maybe a third of those would qualify to be soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, you have 20% that are too religious, and they're just nothing but parasites, and they'd be a liability. Even if they would agree to be part of the military, they'd be a liability. They have no skills. They're parasites. They're heredity. And then you've got the super Marxist Jews who, you know, the only flag they're going to carry is the I'm queer. And I got nothing against gays. I mean, really, I don't. But when that's your identity, chances are you're not going to make a very good soldier.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know, if you don't even know what sex you are, chances are you're really not in a position to go out and fight like a man.
Right.
And I understand that in Israel, women fight too. But, you know, I've looked a lot of the images of the IDF in Gaza and around, and you might see one woman amongst 1,000 images. Yeah, they're in the military, all right, but they're not the ones carrying the rifles.
Combat
not in
forward,
combat.
no.
Yeah, not in combat. They do a lot of dancing videos, but they're not in combat.
Yeah.
And so it's Israel. You just don't have enough troops to make a difference. All right. So Israel, you're in a terrible, terrible position, and there's literally no way out for you, because this time Iran's not going to negotiate with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have a ceasefire with you, and you cannot invade them. You cannot destroy them. You cannot defeat them. And so all you've got left is to hope that the United States can.
Well, yeah, we're going to try. They're talking about, you know, Karg Island. That's they're thinking that this is the linchpin of the whole thing. We can open up the Strait of Hormuz and everything's going to be great gravy, right?
Now, if the problem is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, was the Strait of Hormuz closed before Israel and the United States attacked Iran?
No, it was good business as usual. I mean, the main problem is the insurance.
were the Kuwaiti and the UAE and the Qatari and the Saudi Arabian, were their oil fields operational?
Yes. Yeah.
They were operational. And there were ships, 100 or so a day, right? Going through the straits. And what are there now? And what changed?
3, Trump.
Yeah, that are
Trump.
Chinese that are allowed to go through. So what caused the closure? The stupidity of the United States and Israel. That's what caused the closure. So you're not going to. There's an old lesson that my pappy was not a very good man. He was a very mean man. But he one of the things that he constantly drummed into my head is you don't send good money after bad. Which means if you're a gambler, and I'm not a gambler, but if you were a gambler and you've lost your savings,
Your rent money,
your rent money, you don't go into that little secret stash that you had and say, "Well, I'm going to bet it all back on this one move."
I just need one win.
Yeah, that is not. You don't ever send good money after bad. If you have a losing hand, give up and try something else. This idea you've never lost until you quit. No, you got to learn when it's time to quit.
Just stop
and
digging.
Try something else. It doesn't mean that you give up on life. It's just that you give up on the approach that is not working, because you continue the approach that's not working. Guess what's going to happen? It's never going to work. What is the definition of insanity? Trying the same thing and expecting a different result. Well, we tried twice now bombing Iran. It does not work. So what are you going to do? You're going to invade Iran? So here we are. This is what I wanted to talk about. The Trump, I can't say Trump administration because it's Donald, the demons that possess him, and psychopaths and clowns. But he has decided. He's not thinking about. He has decided. And he is not contemplating dispatching. He has dispatched past tense. 10,000 U.S. troops to invade Iran. Originally, he said it was, I'm going to give you an ultimatum.
Right.
24 hours or 48 hours, you open the Straits of Hormuz, or I'm going to take out your all of your energy infrastructure.
Your power plants.
By the way, would that be a war crime?
By their definition, yeah. It's
by any definition of a war crime, would that be a war crime? Well, taking out the energy grids of a nation, with that is textbook definition war crime. That's why we have the UN. That's why there's a UN charter. That's why there's a rule of international law. There are things that if you do, you will become a pariah state, and they will try to indict your leaders and bring them to trial. That is a very severe war crime. Bombing a children's school was a war crime too, but not to the extent of taking out a country's power grid.
Right.
This is nothing but a war crime. So he made that threat. He made it an ultimatum. Somebody who claims to be good at making deals never issues an ultimatum. An ultimatum is not a negotiating tactic. It is a tactic of total desperation. Ultimatums don't work. They are for weak-minded people that don't have an argument that will prevail.
Right. That's your
cluster. So he gave a 48-hour ultimatum, and I don't know if it was the fact that Iran said, play that card. We'll take out all of the energy infrastructure and the petroleum hydrocarbon infrastructure of every Gulf state. So you do that.
Desalination plants.
You will have crippled the world. The entire world will go into depression for 10 years. That's our response. That's a promise. You do it. That's the consequence. We hope you don't do it. We don't want our infrastructure crippled. But if you do it, we will destroy the infrastructure of every Gulf country so that you wouldn't have to worry at that point about the Straits of Hormuz being opened, because there will be nothing to ship through the Straits of Hormuz.
You turn our lights off, you have no lights as well. Yep.
You have no lights as well, and you have no oil, world, and you won't have oil for a decade or more.
Wow.
So That's what so he might have said, okay, well, that's probably not a good idea. Or somebody in the military might have actually said, what you're asking us to do is a war crime. I don't want to go and spend the rest of my life in jail. And so just bad idea. Does not do that. So then he came back 2 days later and he said, okay, I'll give him 5 days. 5 days. So it's a more open-ended ultimatum.
Witkoff and Jared are working on it. We're going to give this 5 days.
Yes. Oh, we're having really good negotiations. They're begging for a deal. Okay. And of course, they're not begging for a deal. There are no negotiations. All of this is confabulation. It's in Trump's mind and no place else. He is lying about negotiation. There are none, and there haven't been any, and there won't be any. And so he finally has somebody type up 15 points on his wish list. He sends it he has no idea who to reach, and he's even admitted it, and Iran, got no clue. He claims, we're talking to their top guy. What's the top guy's name? Well, he's their top guy. He's really respected over there. Their top guy. That's who we're negotiating with. No, you're not negotiating with their top guy. He won't talk to you. And the only person that is really known that you could negotiate with would be their foreign minister. And he said, no, you're not talking to me, and I'm not about to talk to you.
Right.
And then he types up this list of 15 things, none of which Iran would ever do, no country would ever do. And he sends it over to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has signed a defense agreement with Iran's most formidable enemy, Saudi Arabia. So do you think that Pakistan is going to be a neutral site for the Iranians? Say, oh, sure, we'll go to Pakistan. Yeah, what are you going to do, kill us there?
Yeah.
No. And the Pakistanis received this thing and said, we're delighted to serve as, the host for this sort of thing if you're going to have it. But you need to know the Iranians are really not interested. And they came out and said it forthright. They're not interested. And then you hear from the Iranians and all of them to a person say, we're not negotiating with him. This is an absolute lie. And we're not going to negotiate with him. We don't trust him for obvious reasons. And so this was his excuse to take it from the ultimatum from 2 days to 5 days. Then yesterday, he took it out to 10 days. 10 days. I'm going to hold off in committing grotesque war crimes for 10 days. And oh, by the way, thank you for that great gift. You gave us a really, really important gift. A great gift. Not going to tell you what it is, but a great gift, which he inferred were tankers that would pass through the Strait of Hormuz that were somehow affiliated with the United States or its allies. And that didn't happen either. In fact, the last two that tried to pass through were both confiscated. So that was a lie too. But what is Trump's modus operandi? Because he's not a very bright man. When, for the first time that the United States attacked Iran, what were the Iranians and the United States engaged in at the time?
Oh, goodness.
They were negotiating a solution diplomatically with the Omanis as the mediators, weren't they?
Okay. All right.
And they had just finished one round, and they were all saying, we made a lot of progress in that one round. Let's go to the next round. And it was the day that the Omanis said, hey, we made really good progress in that round. This might work out. That was the night that Trump decided to obliterate their nuclear capability.
The B-2.
So he used diplomatic negotiations, not as a means to avoid war, but as a pretext to war. Oh, I tried to negotiate with them. I couldn't do it. So therefore, we just bombed them.
Right.
It wasn't a way to avoid war. It was a pretext to war. I thought he was so clever. I'll take them by surprise. They think they're negotiating with us, and I'm going to go and bomb the living car out of them. So then what happened this time?
Well, we're
extenuating at the time.
We're pushing 10 days worth of negotiations.
No. That's before this. Before this one.
Oh, okay.
No, before this one. When we started this war a month ago.
Oh, we started this war a month ago. Strike. Yeah, get them together because we're going to negotiate our deal and then we'll take them all out.
When we were negotiating a month ago, again, the Iranians actually said, listen, if your issue is with enriched uranium, we're committed. The Ayatollah is not going to make a bomb with it. We'll send it off to someplace like Russia as a neutral party. we'll give up our enriched uranium. We're obviously not giving up our missiles, and we're not giving up our proxies and that sort of thing. But we'll give that. If that's your issue, you release the sanctions. We'll give up our nuclear fuel. And so they had major breakthrough in terms of a discussion. And what did Trump do? That same night
Killed them
of
all.
that announcement, the very night of that announcement, he started bombing them and did a decapitation strike and started the war. So in other words, the negotiations weren't to avoid war. The negotiations were a pretext to war.
Right.
So now Trump, in his own little mind, is confabulating. And he says, oh, we're having great discussions. And then the next second he says, boy, they better get with it and get serious about these discussions. Oh, man, we are really close to having a deal. Boy, if they don't get their act together and start dealing with us, it's going to be bad for them. Every other sentence, it contradicts the previous one. But he's using, once again, the negotiations, even though these are imaginary, as the pretext to war. That's his one-trick pony. So I would have thought, prior to him extending his deadline from 2 days to 5, and then 5 days to 10, that the 5th day ends this evening.
Yeah.
And that after the markets close, it would be the natural time for him to launch his invasion. And that the only reason for expending to 10 days was to give them a sense that, well, this is still ongoing. There might be hope.
I think wasn't it George Bush that said? Wasn't it George Bush that said, "Fool me once, shame on, and fool me twice, you won't get fooled again."
He couldn't. Yeah, fool me again. I don't know. Yeah, fool me. Yeah, he got that. Yeah, that was funny. But I actually knew George Bush quite well. He was not a very smart man, nor a very moral man, but I knew him. So the high likelihood, looking at Trump's prior behavior and the fact that he has now moved 10,000 U.S. troops into the region. He has flown from Fort Bragg. And then in addition to that, he has 2 amphibious ships that have the gunships on them and special ops Marines. Plus, he's drained the U.S. stockpile of special forces. Everything from Rangers to all of the various SEAL teams and the special operations team. He's taken them all, and he has flown them all or sailed them all to the Persian Gulf. And these the 2 amphibious launch ships that are specifically designed for this sort of thing, they arrive this evening in the Persian Gulf. He likes to fight at night. It's about a 7-hour time change to where they are. Loves to fight at night. The moon's going to get brighter, not dimmer, over the next week. They like the cover of darkness, and all of the airborne troops are already there. They landed today and yesterday, so he's got 10,000 troops there.
Wow!
What do you think he's going to do with them?
Well, Marines don't do well setting in camp. The only way to defeat a battalion of Marines is not to engage them. They'll kill themselves in bar fights.
Oh, yes. By the way, the Marines and the special op forces that left, it says the only thing that's really important to us now is that there's chaplains coming along, because we're being put on a deployment without any prior preparation. There is no planning in this case. That is suicidal. So I hope they have chaplains.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, so they're all there. And Trump has had a fixation on Krog Island since 1988. He has a speech talking about the damage he would do to Iran if he could take Krog Island all the way back to 1988. He's had a fixation on it. And so I think what you're going to see, and oh, by the way, we did one other thing. We moved a whole squadron of B-52s to this theater. And we brought them there for a single reason. They're going to do carpet bombing of the shoreline of Iran.
Sure.
So as they do carpet bombing of the shoreline of Iran, we deployed the A-10s, which are, meat grinders, and the Apache gunships. And these Marines and special ops and Ranger airborne divisions, we're going to put 10,000 U.S. troops on a number of islands in the Persian Gulf. It's not only going to be Krog Island. It's going to be those islands that are around the choke point of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
And there will probably be some that go inland to try to take out the various weaponry and the fast boats and all that sort of thing that are inland.
Right.
Okay. Once they're there, and I think that, with the microwave weapons that America has, where they can debilitate defenders with the microwave weapons that we have, and with then the ability of the Americans, they have the second wave. The first wave is the microwave weapon, which debilitates defenders. The second wave lights up all radar. It's so much of a target. It lights up the radar. And the third wave is the F-35s with radar-seeking guided missiles behind them. And the 1, 2, 3 is likely to create a appearance of victory for America, where they'll take those islands and they'll take the coastline of Iran that's been carpet bombed. Likely to do all of those things. And then what?
And then what?
And then what? I mean, forget about the fact that there might be 1,000 casualties in doing it, or at least 500 casualties in doing it. And then what? How are you going to hold those islands against a nation of 93 million people that have 2 million troops under arms?
Right.
And they want to kill you to defend their homeland, who have a huge stockpile of guided munitions and have all manner of drones. They're the kind of the foremost inventor and user of drones today. And you're going to put them on islands in the midst of the Persian Gulf.
You can't resupply
with that many drones, and you cannot resupply them, and you can't protect them, and you're out of interceptors, and an interceptor is a lousy weapon against drones anyway. What are you going to do? You're going to shoot them out of the air with Apache gunships? I mean, what is your plan? How are these men going to survive?
Mm-hmm.
And then and let's just say that they do land, which I think they will. They take over the islands, which I think they will. What do they accomplish?
They're not a maintenance force. They don't hold anything.
Oh boy, now you got Frog Island. You can bring ships in there, and you can just steal all of our oil. What's going to happen? I mean, there's a 0% chance to happen. And then, in addition to that, imagine the response of the Iranians, even if they're only able to marshal 10% of what they said, and they go off and they start bombing all sorts of drone and missile attacks, the refineries, the oil distribution facilities, and the water facilities, and all of those family dictatorships, as they like to call them, throughout the Gulf region.
Yeah, that's their play. That's all they're going to do. Why would we bomb our own infrastructure and try to push you out of it? We're just going to do what we said we were going to do. Yeah.
Well, they will use drones. They will take out Krog. You put 3,000 Marines on Krog Island, they'll take it out. Absolutely, they'll take it out. But they'll cut off the spigot for it before they even take it out. And they will carpet bomb their own islands. Also, if they have a chance to kill
Americans,
5,000 or 10,000 Americans, there's nothing that will stop them. But let's just say that America is magic, that not only they take the islands, which I think they will, and let's just say they can hold the islands without considerable losses, which I don't think they can. But let's just say they could. What now? What does that get you? What does that get you? I mean, the oil facilities and the U.S. situation with the other Gulf states, America is now a pariah.
Right. And the things that are keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed do not come from Karg Island. So
no, they don't.
The mines
they
are
come
still
from
there.
underground, under cliff facilities in that shoreline that would be like taking the beaches of Normandy without the beaches.
Well,
and it's just sheer cliffs that go straight up.
And it's hundreds of miles long. I mean, that whole inlet around Karg Island is 120 miles, like circular around the island, and so.
But all the way down that coastline, it's like 600 or 700 miles.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, no, you can't. You know how many troops it would take for America to be able to actually conquer and occupy Iran? The number is probably in the range of 4 to 5 million. We have, what, 400,000?
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that America is going to stand by and have 400,000 of its sons and daughters risk their lives and die in Iran when Iran's not an enemy of the United States? Okay, they can say death to America all they want to. They just are not a threat to America.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah,
they weren't. They are now. But do you think Americans are going to go for that? I mean, you'd have to reinstitute the draft. Do you think that Americans are boys are going to say, "Oh yeah, I'll sign up for that"? Sure. As soon as I set down my game controller, where I'm doing my first person shooter game, yeah, I'm going to go off and do that. Yeah, why not?
If there was chatter from the FBI about the ability of Iran to have strikes from the Pacific coast, from like Iranian ships, off cargo ships or whatever, that they send drone, or that they might have that capability to do that, to hit LA or something. Now, it was chatter from the FBI, but I don't know that that's not a setup for I don't want to use the term false flag, but once again, what got us into Afghanistan was 9/11, regardless of how easy it was made. I mean, we went into Afghanistan. We didn't go into Saudi Arabia, right? The 19 hijackers from Saudi Arabia.
Saudis that perpetrated it, and there were no Afghanis that participated. We went into, and there were no Iraqis that participated in it. So we just used an excuse to go in and wage war with those two countries. There were no Iranian ships. There were no Iranian ships off the coast of California that were going to send drones into Los Angeles.
I agree.
That is utterly stupid, and so no, America is not going to do that. And then you have the problem of that the only pretense of solvency America has is the petrodollar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's losing all affinity now for the petrodollar. It's destroyed the U.S. dollar as a safe currency to invest in, as a safe currency to do trade in. And the petrodollar thing was based upon you agree to sell all of your oil and gas in dollars, and we'll provide protection for you. It'll be our military that protects you. Won't be protecting America's, by the way. We'll be protecting you. And then what did we do? We declared war on Iran, and we left. We just abandoned all of those bases, and none of the Muslims in those bases knew how to operate the equipment. And it got destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And now you want to tell them, well, you have to honor the petrodollar? And what do you have in the Middle East? You've got the Saudi Arabians wringing their hands that those Iranians are really bad, and the Qataris and the United Arab Emirates are really bad. We really dislike them. You need to stop doing that. Unprovoked attacks on us. They have hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. weapon systems and no one to use them.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a terrible position, and their population does not like them. And the only reason they keep themselves in power is they bribe everybody, and they're running out of money because they can't ship oil or gas, and their facilities are being destroyed. And we created this, and it's going to destroy the petrodollar in the process. So, it's said this a million times. It's easy for any idiot to start a war.
Mm-hmm.
Ending a war is very difficult. And in wars, everyone loses. And in this war, Israel is a big loser. The United States is a huge loser, and Iran is a huge loser, as are all of the Muslim dictatorships throughout that region. They're huge losers. And because China and Russia are the allies of Iran and are doing nothing to protect Iran, they're huge losers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Ukraine is a huge loser because Russia is getting rich on this whole war. It's costing China a lot of money, but Russia is getting rich.
Price of oil goes up. Absolutely. Good for Russia. Yeah. Liquid natural gas, all of that. Yeah. They're raking it in for sure.
And then you have Europe, don't even know what they are. They say they're paying 5 times more for American natural gas and oil than they were paying the Russians. 5 times more. Their economies are essentially bankrupt, and they still won't do any deal with the Russians, who, if they hadn't aggravated through NATO and the Ukraine, would be their best buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So the ramifications of this are worldwide, and Israel has absolutely turned itself into a pariah and an enemy of China and Russia. And even though China and Russia have shown no guts whatsoever at protecting the world from Trump, and could have, and China or Russia has the technology to take out those carriers and to give America the kind of black eye that it needs to get the hell out of there and leave. And neither one have been willing to do it.
Right. Well, what's in it for China to do? I mean, yes, they're losing Iran, but they're not really losing Iran. In a span of time, things will come back around, and Iran will be able to flow oil into China, or they can purchase, their energy from. There are
already
Russia.
pipelines. Yeah, there are pipelines that bypass the sea, and so they yes, but it becomes more difficult for a nation to elicit a sweetheart deal for another nation if they're not willing to help that nation when they're being attacked. And to the degree that America destroys Iran, it makes it more difficult for China to get oil from Iran, which is a huge part of this war, is that the neocons all wanted to carve up Russia and China. And so if they obliterate any business that Russia or China can do in the world, they think that they can accomplish that. But the Chinese are already the world's foremost leader in alternative energy sources, both nuclear, solar, wind, coal, clean coal, you name it. They're already the number one developer of all of those sources. And China has enough pipelines from Russia and from eastern Iran to suffice. But what a mess we've made. We've destroyed the petrodollar. We're now at $39 trillion in debt, and we have no way to service the debt. No one wants to buy U.S. bonds. And we have positioned the U.S. military as just a bratish force that is enormously destructive but can't prevail.
Right.
What have we done to
ourselves? They're pirates.
They're pirates. Oh, yeah, they're pirates. Yeah. Join the Navy, become a pirate. We're kidnappers.
Yeah.
We threaten countries, whether it's little Greenland or Cuba or Panama. We're going to wear Canada as a hat. No, we've destroyed ourselves. And I think Americans and the world needs to know that Donald Trump is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. He is exceedingly dangerous. And unfortunately, he is so vicious that there isn't a world leader who is willing to stand up to him. Not one. Not Putin. Not Xi. And collectively, because of the infighting and animosity between them, BRICS is too far away from having a replacement. The only thing they have is this quasi gold-backed yuan from China and their trading system, but it's not sufficient right now. And China actually doesn't want to destroy the United States. That we're, an important market of China, and that's not their goal. The goal of the Chinese, they know that they have already won. They have surpassed the United States as the economic engine of the world, and that in every way that matters, they have already overtaken the United States, and that the United States is certain to implode economically under its debt that it cannot service. So, but a soft landing, a slower pace to the demise of the U.S. is in China's interest, which is why they're not provoking anything. But when you constantly abandon your friends like they did in Venezuela and now are doing with Iran, you lose prestige. You look like, why would I want to do a deal with you when you'll cut tail and run and laugh at us when we're in a bad situation? Right. Russia at least gave them intelligence information and is likely going to supply them with and I think Russia and China both collaboratively will supply them with whatever additional missiles they need. But it's not enough. And it's just a shame to see no backbone on Xi and Putin, who actually could put a stop to this before America destroys the world.
or the United States within itself, the people of the United States, because there's not one person that this is benefiting. And well, there is one person that this is benefiting in the United States. Our fuel prices are not there. I mean, there's nothing the people of the United States are getting out of a war with Iran. You know,
well, this is not benefiting Trump either. It's Trump's popularity and approval ratings are in the tank. So he knows that he is a rat that's cornered. Even as stupid as he is, he knows he's a rat that's cornered, and no one's buying his rhetoric anymore. So he's put himself in a horrible position. There is no out anymore. And the more you escalate the situation, the further the off-ramps become. So the idea of declaring victory and leaving, which he did the second day of the war, he just didn't leave. The moment the Strait of Hormuz was closed, there is no declaring victory and lose. You can't leave. You can't do what you did with the Houthis. You can't lose and then declare you won and leave. You can't do that because they've closed the Strait of Hormuz. And you can't open it to a favorable degree. Could the U.S. Open it and then ensure every tanker that went through it and keep it from being mined and keep the fast boats from working and keep all the missiles at bay and keep all of those refineries along the other side of the Gulf Coast open and keep the Iranian refineries also open and all of the pumping stations open? Could they do that? No, but could they pretend and have 10% of that? Maybe, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And to what outcome?
It would definitely be budget insurance. It would be your progressive. We'll pay for your sunken, lost cargo boat. 10 years from now. Yes.
And then when the mines continue and the fast boats continue and the destruction of all the Gulf states continue, and Iran is not going to allow America to steal its oil. They have 2 million troops under arms. They're not going to let the Americans stay there unharassed. What are you going to do to protect them? You're going to send in another 2-3 million troops?
Wow.
You've eliminated any chance of leaving when you take this next step. And you have assured the destruction of not only the region, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the Emirates, Qatar, all of them, Bahrain. But you've also guaranteed the destruction of Iran, 93 million people there. And you've guaranteed never having a functional relationship with Saudi Arabia or China again. You've isolated and put Europe into a depression. And you've destroyed the petrodollar. So what would you achieve by taking this next step? You would have to be demonic, really, to make that call. And that's where we are. That's why I wanted to do this show, to say this is the only outcome from this series of events. So could you have very quickly a look of victory by the U.S. forces taking those islands? Yeah, I think they will take them. But for what
it's going to be a good Monday and a very bad next Friday.
Yes. Yeah. What is the overall consequence of this? And you need to understand the mentality of Muslims from the Quran's perspective. Allah was very clear to a Muslim. If a Muslim retreats, if a Muslim stops fighting, then Allah says, I'm going to take that former Muslim who is now a hypocrite, and I'm going to have my good Muslims kill them so I can torture them forever in the hottest places in hell. So a Muslim that signs a deal capitulating to a non-Muslim is automatically destined to an eternity of torment from their God. And a Muslim that dies killing for Allah is guaranteed an eternity of decadent rewards and perpetual virgins. Now, when you know that, how in the world is this plan going to work?
Right. In their mind, it is fight to the death. Why not? Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. If you don't fight to the death, your soul's going to be tormented forever.
Yeah.
And if you do fight to the death, you get the virgins. Now, I understand that Iran's not nearly as Muslim as it once was, but the fact of the matter is, when the United States is bombing you every day, you're going to
that's where you turn.
Yeah, you're going to hate the perceived Christianity of America.
Yep.
And you're going to turn, when there's no one else to turn, you'll turn to your God, even if he's pretend. So, with Hespesis right now, we're fighting the Crusades again. It's onward Christian soldiers.
Right.
Fighting off to war. I mean, it's the Crusades all over again.
Mm-hmm. I have seen lots of posts about people. Trump is doing God's work. And I mean, it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
It is. Yeah, there's only one thing worse than a person who's overtly political. And that's somebody who is overtly religious and political, as are most of the MAGAs. They're politicized Twistians. That's why Charlie Kirk was such a counterproductive individual. It's why Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and all of that cast of characters, even Glenn Beck now is among them. They're worthless. They're exceedingly counterproductive, and this is the influence that America is under. And you don't have in America an alternative, because the Democrat Party is not a viable alternative anymore. The party has gone way too socialistic, too Marxist to be mainstream, and they don't know how to counter Donald Trump, and they're afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's cowered with his private army, particularly with ICE, he's cowered them into submission. And so the Democratic Party, even if they were to win Congress, they couldn't do anything. If they win Congress and the Senate and they impeach him and they convict him, it would have no ability to do anything because he's just too ornery, too nasty.
The
Democrat Party is not the alternative.
Down.
And MAGAs are lost in space, and there is no Republican Party other than MAGA. So America, you're just toast. There's nothing left. You're playing poker against a royal flush, and all you've got is jokers. No, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it's going to play out. And I just thought people ought to know that this is how it's going to play out. Now, if you don't want to be caught up in it, there is a solution. Go to Yada Yada. Don't think that Ask Yada at Yada Yada is going to take you from where you are to where you need to go. You need to start reading the book. Start reading with an introduction to God. If you want to know about current events, then read Time of Trouble, the 9th volume of Yada Yada.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But build yourself a foundation of information. Read the Coming Home series. If you're still caught up in some Christian mythology, read the Twistianity series so you know just how bogus that whole religion is. There was no Jesus. God is not a man. Man cannot kill God. Bodily resurrection is pagan ideology. It has nothing to do with reality. The whole thing was made up by Paul. It is an absolute lie. And come to read the goddamn religion books. There's 5 volumes. Come to understand who this enemy is, so that you can actually, there you go. That's the Twistianity series. Then we have the goddamn religion series, where you come to know who Allah really is and who Muhammad was, and why you can't beat this group of militants with bullets and bombs. You need to wield words wisely, and we don't know the right words to wield as a nation or as a people, humanity. But if you do make the right call and you shed your ignorance and you start reading and you learn and you can respond intelligently to Yahweh, then you need to engage, because God does not do deadbeats. He is not looking for people who want an entitlement plan. If your plan is, I'm going to do whatever the minimum is and I'm going to sit there and eat bonbons on the sofa, you are not welcome. And
you get the Adam treatment.
And it's what we found out with all of these people that were listening to what we had to say and benefited from it, who then decided that they were going to go off and pursue a mommy goddess and then attack everything that we had accomplished. That you bail out on the covenant, you are not welcome back in the covenant. Mm-hmm. Miriam was the great proof of that. She was a prophetess. She led the Song of the Sea on the women's side. And then she went in and claimed, well, we too speak for God. And God says, well, it's as if your father spit in your face there, young lady. You are now covered with leprosy and you're banished from Israel. And you become synonymous with what it means to be divorced. So you need to know that there's a lot at stake here, and you need to get your act together and in a hurry. And you ought to stop pretending that you're covenant just because you can say the words. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to do. And God's not looking for pacifists. He's not looking for the humble and the meek. He's looking for fighters. And he's in a fighting mood. He's in a really, really, really enraged disposition at the moment. And it's going to get even worse as the religious and the conspiratorial and the anti-Semites and the nincompoops continue to irritate him. So you're forewarned. This is what's going to happen. And it's playing out right before our eyes. I mean, when we said a year and a half ago, a little more than a year and a half ago now, that Donald Trump is the great betrayer that Christians call the Antichrist. He is the Torahless one who is now known as Rahab. That's the term that Yahweh used of him. Mm-hmm. It was one thing to say it to them and then to be able to prove it through the prophets. But then to have Donald Trump every day since then prove it.
For you, yeah.
You know, you ought to be listening. A year before October 7th, I told you it was going to happen. It was going to happen. And while it was happening, I told you this is only 0.1% of what's going to happen in 2027 when Alaska Flood 2.0 occurs. Mm-hmm. And here's where they're coming from, and here's what they're going to do. When somebody constantly tells you in advance what's going to happen, and it happens, you might want to listen. And that's why we did this program. I want you to listen so that you can protect your own, because the world's not salvageable anymore. You can't save America. You can't save Israel. It isn't salvageable. It's only going to be a tiny remnant of Israel in the very end that is going to be purged of their religious and political guilt. That's going to be allowed into the garden, but they're going to have nothing in common with political and religious Israel as it exists right now. It's going to be strictly based upon the preferred ethnicity. And even then, there's going to be a bunch of Goyim that are allowed into the millennial Shabbat too. There's a lot for you to learn, and you need to get with it. So that's why we had this program. Sorry for the ugly guy with his the bad teeth and the mouth open there. He happens to be a Marxist, like most of the professors now that are the experts. But even the Marxists get this one right. U.S. versus Iran was the heading, the war of attrition. The moment it moved to a war of attrition, which is where it is now, there is no chance America can win, because this is a war of choice by America. And most Americans, by 2/3, don't want the war. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a war of choice by people 7,000-8,000 miles away who don't want the war, and you have a people who are fighting for their very survival, you will always lose that war. That is a war that America cannot win and will not win. And thus far, almost every move of the Iranians has been to outsmart the U.S. You know, people thought originally, why are they blowing up the bases and the refineries and other Muslim nations? You know, we're very, very smart to do that.
Buildings, I mean, hitting the bank towers in Dubai. I mean, it was,
Yeah, the U.S. radar installations there, the U.S. bases there, the CIA offices there, and then the oil distribution facilities that were used to support the family dictatorships that were against Iran. Iran became the hegemon for the Persian Gulf. America has always tried to avoid anyone other than itself being the hegemon anywhere in the world. And it now put Iran as the hegemon of the Persian Gulf. And there is nothing that the Islamic nations that are Arab nations on the other side can do about it. They're wringing their hands. But MBS met with Zelensky yesterday. I mean, the guy who's fought a war for 5 years with the United States and Europe, giving them every imaginable weapon and intelligence, and he's losing a war to Russia. And you want to say that he's the guy that you want to ally with to defend yourself against the Iranians? Yeah, come on. I mean, it's just desperation. I think all of these family dictatorships are desperate now. They're painted into a corner, and there's no way out for them. No way out for the United States, no way out for Israel, no way out for the Gulf Arab nations, and no salvation really for Iran. It's being destroyed in this process too. And so is the world economies in Europe and Asia, and of course the United States. This was one of the greatest miscalculations of all time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, are you going to make another show on Shabua? It's we're
yes.
an hour and 40 minutes in. So
yes, okay. No, we're all done. That was my waiting for you to wrap it up. Okay. I'm going to send over my notes so far on Shabua. We'll begin a series on it. We'll use the new Wookiee introduction. You are more than welcome. In fact, we'd be encouraged to join us on the Shabua show. You might have a life and other things you need to be doing in the meantime, since you'll be back with me this evening for Family Hour. But if you want to join me, please do. The Shabua, okay. The first part of it's interesting. The second part of it is gripping. It is just really stimulating material to talk about this next harvest, and also the issues of the time of trouble. It's all woven into it, and God has a lot to say about Shabua. It shouldn't have been a secret all this long.
Right.
All right, there, Rich. We'll let Cara take us out. Thanks so much for producing this show.
Hey there! Thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.